Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Mark, a trainer here at WEX Field Service Management, and today we're covering QuickBooks Sync inside WEX FSM. This webinar will cover syncing to QuickBooks Desktop using the Sync tool, syncing to QuickBooks Online, one-way sync versus two-way sync, customer sync, invoice sync, and payment sync, how to check auto sync statuses, how to check your back office settings. We'll look at QuickBooks item list, how to access your training resources for syncing, and end with a live Q&A where you can ask your questions and get those answered live on stream. Now, the very first thing to know with QuickBooks is there are two versions of QuickBooks. There's QuickBooks Desktop, which requires the sync tool, and QuickBooks Online, which syncs via the cloud through the internet. Syncing to QuickBooks Desktop requires the WEX FSM Sync tool. That is an application that you will install into your computer, and that is what allows the sync to happen between WEX FSM and QuickBooks. To get the sync tool, you will go to the Help Center, Tasks, and the QuickBooks Sync Training, which I will show you where that is once we dive into the software in just a bit. You can also just reach out to customer care and let them know you need a sync tool install. They will install the sync tool for you and show you how to use it, but you do need to be the one who organizes that meeting, or just make sure that you are reaching out to get that meeting set. To prepare for a sync tool install, again, this is for QuickBooks desktop users. You want to make sure you have your admin username and password for both WEX FSM and QuickBooks Desktop. You will attend the sync tool install meeting via Zoom, and you'll use the computer, or you're going to want to use the computer with your main QuickBooks Desktop file on it. If you are using a server, you will let your customer care rep know, because that will change where the tool is installed. And that is it. So just make sure you have those items and you're ready for your sync tool install. Now, using the sync tool for QuickBooks Desktop, once the tool is installed, it will look something like this. And you have a couple options here. You can manually sync with the sync tool by clicking the sync button, or you can set auto sync. And by going to your settings, you can go to the auto sync schedule and choose to sync automatically every 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or once per day. You also have the option to enable auto sync at startup. If you turn your computer completely off at the end of the day, when you turn it back on and your system is booting up, if you have enable auto sync at startup, it will automatically turn on your sync tool and begin the syncing process. Now, for QuickBooks Online, that does not require a sync tool. Everything is cloud-based, meaning that it is syncing through the internet, no tool required. At sign up, you would have provided your QuickBooks login information. The data team is able to just use that login info to connect to your QuickBooks, and there's no manual sync option for QuickBooks. However, it does sync automatically every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day. So that is something that's nice with QuickBooks Online, is it is just going to sync every 10 minutes. So you don't even really have to think about it. You're going to use your WEX FSM system, entering things like customers, invoices, and payments, and then those will sync down to your QuickBooks every 10 minutes. So the biggest differences between QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online: QuickBooks Desktop requires the sync tool and allows for manual syncing. QuickBooks Online, there is no sync tool required, but there's also no manual sync option. It's auto sync only. Now, What actually syncs? And we are going to dive deeper into this when we get into the software, but a main thing that you should know about QuickBooks syncing is there are two types of sync. There's one-way sync items and two-way sync items. One-way sync means that you will enter those items into WEX FSM first, and those will sync down to QuickBooks. This includes things like customers, invoices, and payments. And if you enter those into QuickBooks first, it will not sync up to WEX FSM. So let's say that you make the switch, you're using WEX FSM, you you enter a new customer into QuickBooks because that's kind of your habit. That will not sync up. So any customers, invoices, or payments after you make the switch and you're using WEX FSM as your main software, do not enter those into QuickBooks because they will not sync up and you will not have a record of them in WEX FSM. However, there are some two-way sync items, and you can enter those into both WEX FSM and QuickBooks. And it'll sync both ways. So some examples are your back office settings, like your chart of accounts, your taxes, and your QuickBooks item list. And so that is just kind of an initial overview of sync. And now let's actually dive into WEX FSM and take a look at some of these sync items. There we go. Now, something to help you with this. If you go, so like when you log into your system, we have a QuickBooks Sync training that you can use to reference, just so you don't have to remember absolutely everything I'm going to be talking about today. So I do want to show you that first. And you will go down to the Help Center. And then you will want to go to the last tab here. So the Help Center, little smiley face guy, and then Tasks. Now, if you are newer or in onboarding, you would have already completed these or you're currently working on these. All of these learning modules in here are very helpful for account setup. But the one we're going to look at is QuickBooks Sync Training. If you have a QuickBooks Desktop account, then you will have QuickBooks Desktop training here. If you have QuickBooks Online, it will give you a QuickBooks Online training. This account we're looking at is QuickBooks Desktop, and we can see the very first thing that it asks is for you to sign up or schedule your Sync Tool install meeting. So if you're QuickBooks Desktop and you have not installed the Sync tool yet, this is where you want to go. You're going to go to the Help Center, go to that last tab, Tasks, go right here to the QuickBooks Sync Training, and then install Sync tool. And this link is what you'll use to schedule that Sync tool install. Then we have what is Sync and how does it work? So I recommend, watching this video. And this is going to reiterate what I was mentioning earlier with one-way sync, two-way sync, things like that. As we mentioned, our one-way sync items are customers, invoices, and payments. And so we have a place to view customer sync. This video will actually show you what is syncing and give some examples of that sync, and even shows parts of QuickBooks, which is nice. And it will allow you to go to the customer page. So if I click on customer page, that will tell you about the customer list. And then you can click on customer here to go to your customers tab. Now, if I'm just in the system without that Help Center article, I can just click on customers here. And now this is showing me my entire customer list. If you don't have any data and you have not added any customers into your WEX FSM system, you will not see anything here. If data has been loaded or you have manually entered customers, you will see those here. And from this page, you can see the auto sync status, which is going to tell you the status of the sync. And you can also search for different auto sync statuses here. Ready means that it is in a ready state. It's ready to sync, but it has not synced over yet. Error would be if there was some type of maybe information missing, something that's preventing it from syncing. Syncing means it's in the process of syncing. And then synced means that it has officially synced over and you will be able to see that in your QuickBooks. From here, you can also delete customers and merge accounts. Something that will happen during an onboarding process is you will be waiting for a supplemental data load to be loaded into your system. And coming over in that will be customers from your previous software. But you want to add them now so you can maybe start creating appointments and getting ready for make the switch. If you add a duplicate into here, and then let's say we load the same thing. So now you have two of the exact same account. You can come in here, spot check those, and then simply select two and then hit merge. When merging in WEX FSM, it's important to know that you must do the merge first in QuickBooks. So if you have two customers in WEX FSM and two customers in QuickBooks, do the QuickBooks merge manually first. That means going into QuickBooks, merging those accounts. That way you have one account in QuickBooks. Then you'll do your merge here. Select the master that correlates to the master in QuickBooks. And then when you merge, that will merge into that account. And then when that syncs over, it will be a one-to-one sync over to QuickBooks. And if you want to delete, you just select the account you want to delete and hit delete. So that is customer sync. Let's go back to our help center here. Next, looking at invoice sync. Again, great video here to watch if you haven't watched that already. But we're going to go now to our invoice list. And the invoice list is where you will see all of your invoices in your system. And this is a place where you can check the auto sync status of your invoices. So this will show you your invoices. The auto sync status column is here. And especially if you have just turned on the sync and you're kind of newer to the sync process, I would check this page once a day, at the very least once a week, just to make sure that everything is syncing properly. And you can come here to auto sync status and select, let's say, not ready. And then any items in your system that are not ready will pull up, and then you can troubleshoot very easily from here. What this is going to do, so this says not ready. That means that there's some kind of missing piece of information that has prevented this from syncing. And if you click on details, it will tell you what it wants. So if I click details, this is saying you must select an account for all invoice line items for QuickBooks Sync. So this knows what the item is. It's just not sure which income account in QuickBooks you want this to sync to. So you will select the income account you want it to sync to and hit save. Now that is saved and that goes into a ready state. And on the next sync, that will sync right over. Now we can see there are a lot here that have a $0 price point. Something else in as it relates to invoices, which is a one-way sync item, something that's important is the you need it is required to have at least one line item on an invoice for it to sync over. If there are no line items, then it will not sync, but it will still show up here. So all of these that are zero, this is just saying that these are invoices that do not have a line item. Once I add a line item to any of these, it will just automatically fix the not ready status here and sync over. So if you go to not ready and you see that there are some that have that $0 price point, you can even click on details and it will say this does not have any line items or descriptions and cannot be synced. Just know there's no action really to be taken there other than to complete the invoice when you're ready. So there is some troubleshooting guides on not ready statuses and being able to see your sync statuses. And if you want to just quickly search for an invoice, this is another place to go to. So that is invoice sync. Let's go back. And then in this QuickBooks Sync training, we also have the payment list. So we have a video here for you to watch, but let's click on payment list. Each of these bring you to an article that teaches you really anything you would need to know about the payment list, but we will go ahead and just go from the software. You can go to jobs, payment list, and just know you have your invoice list is here, payment list is here, and then the customer list actually has its own button. You click on customers right here. So let's go to the payment list. Yep. And so from here, this will show you your payments in your system. So if you've already started processing payments, this is where you will see a list of all those payments. You can search by date range. You can look by, payment type, payment method. But essentially, this is similar to the other that we have shown you. This will show you the auto sync status. You can also click on this drop down arrow and turn off the sync. That is something you can do on the invoice list as well. Let's say for some reason you have a payment in here that you do not want to sync over. Maybe you accidentally took that payment in QuickBooks, but now you also took it in WEX FSM, um, or maybe recorded it, you can come in here and just turn that off. So whatever use case you have personally, you can turn off the sync individually per item if that's something that you need. Also, from each of these lists, you can download the information here as an Excel file or a PDF file if needed. All right, let's go back to our QuickBooks training. So we looked at customers, invoices, payments. Those are all one-way sync items. And now let's look at accounting and tax details, which are two-way sync items. So the two-way sync items means that these you can update and edit in QuickBooks, and that will sync up to WEX FSM. We're going to go to, you can either from this training go to accounting and taxes with this button here, or you can just go there directly from settings, accounting and taxes, which is where we want to go. The accounting and taxes page, this is going to have the version of QuickBooks that you sync to. It will also show you whether or not your sync has officially brought in your classes, your chart of accounts, inventory part accounts, your tax settings, and your tax groups. These are all items that would have been loaded or synced from your QuickBooks, and they are two-way sync items. So if you go in and change your taxes inside QuickBooks, it will sync up and update those here. Same thing, classes, you go in and add a new class. When you come in here after it syncs, you'll see that new class in here because it is a two-way sync item. Let's go back. And then let me check my notes before we move on. We did that. We did that. Okay, cool. So another two-way sync item is going to be your QuickBooks item list. If you use your QuickBooks item list for pricing, you have all your pricing in your QB item list. You can pull items from your QuickBooks item list onto your proposals and invoices and use those for those job forms. And you can edit your QuickBooks item list in QuickBooks, and that will sync up to WEX FSM. Now, just to give you a quick view of that, when you're on an invoice, you will select Add Item. And if you're syncing to QuickBooks, you will have a tab here that is from your QuickBooks item list. And here it is. So any items that are in your QuickBooks item list will sync up to WEX FSM. It'll be a one-to-one view. So you'll see what you would see if you looked in QuickBooks. And then you simply click on the item that you want. And now that has been added, and you can use that to then build out your proposals and invoices. And then for like managing, let's say you want to update the pricing of your QuickBooks item list, do that in QuickBooks, and that will sync up to WEX FSM. Okay. The last thing that we will cover here is looking at your resources. So let's go back. We'll just go ahead and just go to the schedule page. And go to the Help Center and go to Video Courses and Webinars. This is where you can sign up for future webinars. This is where you can view courses. And then down below here are past webinars. Now we are recording today's session, so you will be able to see a replay of this that will be under the 2026 past webinars. But if you want to watch the QuickBooks Sync 101 from last year, you can also watch that replay right from here. If you have any questions, let's say you run into something with Sync that you're just not sure about, you can contact support just by clicking Contact Support here. And if you go to the Help button right in the center here, you can just search for what you want. So maybe, QuickBooks Sync. And we have a lot of different resources. Maybe you're more interested in invoice sync, right? And then that would show up here. All right, so that is all the information we have for today's presentation, but we do have plenty of time for our Q&A. So please, any questions that you have, if there's something that I did not go over today that you were hoping to see, please let me know and we can dive in.